Not only absurd but utterly repugnant is the declaration that Darwinian evolution was a necessary component to Hitler's dictatorship and the Holocaust. The history of anti-Semitism in Germany goes back hundreds of years before Darwin was born. The perpetrators were Christians. Would Ben say that Christianity was also a necessary component to the Holocaust? This leads back to, who is this movie for? In order to find this flick anything other than a vile, offensive, poorly constructed, boring piece of propaganda, one would have to be religious, a right-wing extremist, scientifically illiterate, and gullible. This film did manage to change my mind about one thing. I believed the hype and thought that the show would produce a reaction leading to anti-science activists coming out in droves. No, it's had a low attendance, bad reviews, and it's just too stupid to motivate political activism. This one is a flop. Expelled has received some positive reviews. Rush Limbaugh, Hal Lindsey, Ken Ham, Glenn Beck, and the Discovery Institute have given it lavish praise. Outside of the narrow, ultra-conservative creationist circles, the reviews have been some of the worst that I've ever seen. Why? Stein and the folks at the Discovery Institute would have you believe that the negative reactions are evidence that there is a conspiracy to suppress information that is contrary to the accepted view of evolution within the scientific community. They state that the mainstream media is crushing their constitutional right to free speech. Stein actually said in interviews, "The media is in on it." Is the free speech issue really grounded in reality? No. Creationists have as much right to free speech as does any other group of people. There are numerous creationist websites, magazines, newspapers, television coverage, and now a movie. In accordance with typical creationist doublespeak, they brag about Expelled debuting in over 1,000 theaters, getting standing ovations, and drawing decent box office dollars for a movie in the documentary category. Then they whine about the critics who pan the film and claim that they are in on a conspiracy to squelch their right to say what they believe to be true. This is what's really going on. Creationist concepts are represented in academic settings. In philosophy classes, the idea that an intelligent agent created the world is discussed and always has been. English students are free to write about the subject. The reason it is not present in science classes is because it is not science. It is no more applicable in a biology classroom than it is in an auto mechanics trade school. Creationists do not have a testable, falsifiable hypothesis from which to go on, much less a scientific theory. Bill O'Reilly is welcome to rant his ass off about it on Fox News, but it is not going to be welcome in a setting where it is not relevant. Another tactic that they used in Expelled is that the shortcomings of Darwinian evolution ought to be addressed and discussed. As far as I can recall, the only problems with evolution that were talked about in Expelled were the fact that evolution does not explain the beginning of life and the ludicrous assumptions that it leads to atheism, eugenics, the Holocaust, and anything else that Ben and friends consider to be wrong with society. First of all, Darwin never intended to explain the origin of life, but the diversity of life forms on our planet. One may as well criticize Einstein's theory of relativity on the grounds that it does not explain how to adjust the carburetor on a 1968 Plymouth. The idea that those who study and accept evolution automatically become atheists can be easily disproved by the existence of scientists who do understand evolution and maintain a spiritual quest in other areas of their lives. Kenneth Miller is a prominent example. The scientific theory of evolution simply does not include the philosophical question of the existence of a grand cosmic whatnot. One may or may not embrace the idea of a boundless being bebopping about. It has no bearing on any scientific theory. Intelligent design, however, necessitates a theistic worldview. Unless one does the hot diggity deity, one cannot apply irreducible complexity, fine-tuned universe, or any other ID concept. ID is just as backward as pure creationism. They start with the conclusion of an almighty thingamajig and then proceed to torture the evidence until it fits into their ideology. Stein and them equate evolution with eugenics. Yes, I do mean equate. The film presents evolution and eugenics as synonymous. They are not. Eugenics is a dead pseudoscience based on a gross misunderstanding of natural selection. This is not to discount the fact that heritable traits can be controlled in an animal or human population by selective breeding. A population of very tall people could be achieved by pairing the tallest men with the tallest women and maintaining this control over many generations. The pseudoscientific aspect of eugenics is the idea that we can determine which traits are valuable to future generations and which are not on an ethical, practical, or scientific level. Case in point, every eugenicist considered his or her own heritable features to be among the most valuable. If there were one case in which a eugenicist said something like, "I've made careful calculations and checked them several times, and it turns out my genes are substandard. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to go have my balls chopped off. The rest of you carry on and good luck." We could perhaps then take it a little more seriously. It is not stated in Expelled that eugenics has gone the way of other obsolete concepts such as phrenology, alchemy, bloodletting, and intelligent design. Back to the crown jewel of hard-hitting evidence that evolution is wrong and bad and evil, argumentum ad Hitlerum, in my opinion, is best described in Dave Barry's 1981 comedic piece, How to Win an Argument. After all kinds of funny argument-winning strategies, Barry concludes the piece with, "Compare your opponent to Adolf Hitler. This is your heavy artillery. For when your opponent is obviously right and you are spectacularly wrong, bring Hitler up subtly. Say, 'That sounds suspiciously like something Adolf Hitler might say.' Or, 'You certainly do remind me of Adolf Hitler.' So that's it. Now you know how to out-argue anybody. Do not try to pull this on people who generally carry weapons." In Expelled, Ben Stein, in an attempt to demonize evolution by any means necessary, has a weird result. Stein comes across as an odd kind of Holocaust denier. In the process of propagating his belief that the Holocaust could not have happened without Darwin, Stein lets Hitler and the Nazi regime off the hook. Darwin is presented as the real villain behind the Holocaust. It would then follow that, without Darwin, Hitler, Himmler, Goebbels, and company would have been model citizens and good neighbors. I'm sure that Ben Stein did not intend for this connection to be made. He did, however, leave himself wide open to it. This is just another example of how sloppy and puerile the arguments in Expelled are. Furthermore, the argument for moral consequences is old. It goes back to the early evolution deniers, and it is as nonsensical now as it was then.